Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode I believe 18 we're on, of the Always On podcast show. Spectacular? I don't know. That said, though, this is going to be the last episode of how the show is currently constructed. We're going to be doing some changes starting next week. Give myself the weekend to toot, scoot, boogie around Adobe Premiere and Audition and set a new template. We're going to break the show up into fourths. I don't really know, but we're going to try and stick to the Wednesday, Friday schedule, maybe do a little bit more where we're going to give you a sports show, politics show. Then infrequently, probably hopefully once a week if we can muster the strength and the time, really. That's the big thing, is just having the time. We're going to give you a show about culture, a show about movies, a show about tech, sort of all combined. So the goal is to have a little bit of 3 different platforms. Really would like to not mesh everything as much as it is now. I enjoy doing the show as we're doing it. However, I think to keep it more bite-sized, to keep it more friendly to those who do not want politics in their sports in their politics. They don't want poop in the punch bowl. I get it. I get it. So we can let it loose a little bit more. We can dive in on some more topics and hopefully keep each episode a little more tight to where we're not bouncing around. I like a little bit of potpourri. What can I say? A little charcuterie board of all different types of cheeses that make up the human race. But that's something that I know a lot of people don't care for. And so we're going to try out giving you just sports, giving you just politics. But in this episode, this is going to be the last one where we're going to review the Players' Championship, look at the NCAA tournament that's going on right now. We're in full swing. I shouldn't say tournament for the NCAA, but we are in full swing when it comes to the conference championships, SEC, ACC, AAC, Big 12, Big 10, all the big ones, Pac-12, all the big tournaments. We're going to be looking at a little bit here just to go over it. My Florida Gators lost today in the second round of the SEC tournament. Not very happy about that, but beggars can't be choosers in that regard, so hopefully we'll be better next year. I do have faith that the golden years are coming with good old Todd Golden. So I think good times for Florida sports are right around the corner when it comes to the 2 premier sports in the NCAA, basketball and football. When it comes to anything else, Florida athletics, we're pretty damn dominant. But that being said, we're going to then jump into some U.S. news when it comes to Tucker Carlson releasing a January 6th video due to some unrelated, or I guess some newly disclosed video that Speaker McCarthy gave him. We're going to talk a touch about Joe Biden's budget process. This episode is going to be a little more freewheeling, free-dealing. Today, in the HVAC world, that's where I work, was wild, buddy. We had a bunch of stuff coming on. People were getting hot over there in Orlando, Florida today. So summer is starting to get into full swing. That's one of the reasons we need to break this show out so I can actually give you concise, good notes, because time is going to be of the essence here soon. So I need to be able to have a format that is conducive to getting all the good stuff that you guys want, or really what I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you guys give 2 craps and want to join along in my conversations, because I can be a little crazy, and conversations with a crazy person have their own entertainment value. Go to a loony bin. You'll see. I've been as close as you can get to a loony bin and seen it. But let's look real quick over at the PGA Tour that's going on right now. We have the first round of the Players Tour, Players Championship at TPC Sawgrass that has kicked off. The leader is Chad Remy. Remy? I don't know. I believe it's Ramy. Okay, he's not ramming you, he's ramming me. He had the second lowest debut score of any player since 1982. He shot a 64, 8 under par at TPC. Unbelievable. That's unbelievable. He was closely followed by Colin Morikawa. I think this might be Colin's, if I had to guess, I believe it was his 3rd or 4th go around. He's such a young player. It's beyond me how young he is. But it was, I think, his 3rd go around at TPC. He shot himself a 65, 7 under par. But there was a lot of good players that are still in the hunt here. Let me just maximize my little scorecard here. You had the Australian. I think he's Australian, judging by this flag. It might be New Zealand, but Min Woo Lee, who who got a cramp. This is not something you see much in the golfing world, but he got himself a cramp in the, I think it was the number 9, and by golly, did he tough it out through the rest of that hole, and I think he shot himself, a 4 under, 68. So not a bad round to open it off. Other notables, you have Scotty Scheffler, the reigning Masters champion, and I don't think he did not win the Waste Management. Irregardless, he is there sitting there pretty at 4 under. Siwoo Kim from South Korea, he's sitting there at 3 under. You also have Victor Hovland of Norway, Jordan Spieth sitting there both themselves at 3 under. Jason Day is still in contention. He's at 2 under. Where did Justin Thomas end up? He was playing, I believe, with Homa and Spieth. And I am just trying to see where he led. At one point, he wasn't having himself. There's a lot of people at even. Max Homa, speaking of the devil, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, they're both at even. Let's see what Thomas does, Justin Thomas, is he's always one of those guys where it seems like Thursday, Friday, not his best, not always his best, but when it comes to a Saturday, Sunday, he's one of those golfers that closes with the best of them. It truly does. It's kind of shocking how good he is at that. Let's do an old control find here. Thomas, let's see where I mistook him for being. Yeah, was it Spieth, Thomas, and Homa? It was. See, ESPN's trying to give me a highlight, so it was Spieth, Thomas, and Homa. Okay, so he was +1. Do you hear the train? I think we're going to hear the train a little bit in the background. I don't know. I live in this really nice apartment, this fancy apartment. I don't like it. I mean, this is the home studio here. I mean, I like the apartment. Fancy enough. I live right next to a damn train track. Train track comes. Luckily, you get used to it after a while, but when you're trying to record sensitive audio, sensual sounds that, take you down to a soulful place and give you space, it's not something you want in the background of any sort of creative endeavor. But hopefully you didn't even hear it, and you're now just hearing me bitch about nothing. Irregardless, moving on. We have that tournament going. The big news that I liked and I enjoyed when the tournament first started, essentially, Hayden Buckley hit an ace, which an ace is a hole-in-one for all you non-avid golfers. On 17, the island green, the big shebang of that tournament, hit a ace on that hole-in-one, the 11th on that hole in tournament play, the 40th hole-in-one in the tournament ever. So that's pretty hollowed ground to be on. 11 hole-in-ones on that specific hole. For how intimidating it is for there to be that little of hole-in-ones, makes total sense to me. It's a beautiful hole. Like I said, very much gives you the heebie-jeebies when you're going up in there. But Hayden Buckley was able to go buck wild on that hole. And let's see where he ended up. I actually didn't even look at that. Hayden, gosh, I do love control find. It does help a lot. Okay, so he's sitting there with Thomas. He's +1 too. That helped him out. He had a opening round of 73. Par is obviously 72. Lord, what's the worst score? Let's see what the worst score is here, because I would be so jealous if I could just do this. Yeah, Lucas Herbert came in. I believe that's Australia. He came in at a +10, shot an 82. If you were to give me a +10 on almost any round, I would be so happy. That just shows how hard this golf game is. This guy's doing it from the tips, plus because it's the pros, and he's going out there again. That's not a great score for the PGA, right? +10, but I would take it. I would take it. Since we're on Lucas Herbert, let's just see. What is he ranked? Does he have a profile? What does he have a ranking? 27 years old, is from Victoria in Australia. Currently ranked 164th. That is about probably 164 million better than me. So that said, we're going to be getting the Players' Championship coming straight in through the weekend. Big stuff, good stuff. Watch it, love it. Pursue the game of golf, grow the game of golf. Gab about the game of golf. It is the best sport, in my opinion, besides football, ever invented. I don't know. Baseball's a good one too. Basketball is great. It's one of the best sports ever invented. It's the game. It's the gentleman's game, and I put it up there in the top 5 of any sport. When it comes to that top 5, we're gonna have to do that. We're gonna have to start top 5s. And what are the top 5 sports? Oof. Off the top of my head, let's go. Let's rattle them off. Not in any particular order here. Golf, football, basketball, baseball. What number 5 is? I don't know. Probably, I'm going to give it to soccer at the moment because I'm not thinking too deeply about this. And soccer, when you're talking about at the upper echelons, it is very good. You start getting into, I know people like La Liga, Bundesliga, Premier League, whatever. Done as me as an American, don't care for that. But when it gets to World Cup time or Euro Cup time, I'm in. That France-Argentina game for the final, one of the best I've ever seen. Loved it. Never going to leave it. Mbappe, Messi, bang, bang, boom. Truly, as a guy who is more of a layman on the soccer scene, there are very few finals in any grand event that topped what we saw there. That was truly spectacular. Let's pivot a little bit to another spectacular sport, that is basketball. And let's just check and see. I don't really have much going on in the world of basketball as far as my notes, because after Florida lost to Mississippi State today, it's traumatized me. The debilitation of Florida of being a premier basketball school has crippled my concern for the basketball goings on. The NBA is doing that to itself, so I'm not worried necessarily about the NBA. But let's check and see how we're doing. I know that ACC were in the quarterfinals. I believe Big Ten were in the second round. Same goes for the SEC. A lot of these smaller schools, though, is where I get myself. Okay, so here we go. It's Thursday the 9th. Let me take a little sip here. Thursday the 9th, we have Penn State and Illinois, and then Minnesota and Maryland. Looks like Rutgers beat Michigan earlier today. Wow, again, I know nothing about how good these teams have been so far this year. That's how checked out I've been. But Michigan, historically, so good. And then you had Ohio State beating Iowa 73-69. I am guessing since there's we're probably in the quarterfinal here too, second round. Let's go ACC real quick. Let's see how the ACC is doing. Right now we have Virginia and North Carolina about to be live on ESPN. Again, today is, since we're going back to back, today is Thursday the 9th when we're recording. This show will obviously come out on Friday, so you're going to see what these final scores are. But North Carolina is playing Clemson. We had Miami beating Wake Forest today, number 14 Miami. And then we had Duke and Pittsburgh, with Duke pulling that out 96-69. Good Lord, Duke. Obviously, they're not as good as they've been historically. They're 21st in the country still, but just a beatdown right there. Let's jump on over to see what's going on here. We went to the Big Ten. Let's check out the Big 12. They're still pretty solid. We have Texas and Oklahoma State. They're playing live. Let's see if we can't give you guys just a quick update. It's 14:25 left. Texas is currently up. Number 7 Texas, 10-5. 10-5 on the old Oklahoma State Cowboys. That is happening in Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. And then we also have TCU, number 22 TCU, and number 12 Kansas State playing tonight, 9:30. Big one. Kansas, number 3 team, leader, blue blood of the Big 12. They beat West Virginia 78-61 today. And then Baylor, number 10 team in the country, lost to Iowa State today in a 78-72 thriller. Let's jump on to what's another big one here. I don't really care about some of these smaller ones. I know the A10 is pretty solid. I know the American East is solid. The American's not too bad. The Big East, Big Sky, there's some solid ones, but let's stick with the blue blood conferences here. What would be the next one? Let's go Pac-12 before we get to SEC. UCLA, the number 2 team, speaking of a blue blood, they beat Colorado today. 80-69. And then we now have 3 games left. We have Oregon and Washington State live right now. Let's check in. Let's do a live check-in on this game. 9:09 left in the second half. Washington up 58-57 on this. Okay, look at that. A little live check-in there for you guys who now know what the score is of that game. I don't care. It's still cool. Now we also have coming up at 9 o'clock tonight, Thursday, March 9th, we have Arizona and Stanford. Big boy game. Then we have USC and Arizona State. Not too much to brag home about. Last but not least here in the NCAA prequels. I'm going to call them the prequels because this is right before March Madness truly begins. This is part of the madness. Not so much for me because my madness, there wasn't much of it. Florida couldn't do anything. So there wasn't really too much madness in Florida, who lost today. At least it was in overtime. It was respectable, 69-68 to Mississippi State. Florida has been up and down, up and down. It's like that big timer song. Up and down and up she going. They were 16-16 on the year, 8th in the SEC. It's NIT bound, baby. NIT stands for now it's time for Florida. So that said, we also had Tennessee and Ole Miss playing. We had Tennessee win 70-55. Not too much of a shocker there. Alabama must have got bounced. When did Alabama play? Or since it's the second round, are they off? Sorry, I'm now learning all this as it goes. No way. Oh, we're way ahead of the time here. Okay, Alabama, they had an off round, so they're going to be playing Mississippi State on Friday. So they're playing tomorrow against Mississippi State. Then Texas A&M and Kentucky are still looking to see who they're going to play. I would imagine one of those two is going to be playing either Arkansas or Auburn or LSU and Vanderbilt. Arkansas and Auburn are playing right now. Let's give you a little live check-in on this game so you guys know exactly when I'm recording this. It's 12-10 right now with 13:50 left in the first quarter. So that game is just tipped off. If you guys want to go see it, check it out. Check it out on SEC Network. Bang, bang, boom. Only the superior in the SEC. That's what I always say. And then last but not least, before I move on from this, because I'm kind of ranting, raving, we have LSU and Vanderbilt. They're playing tonight at 9. Notice, okay, I didn't say one player's name. I didn't say one coach's name. This just goes to show how checked out I am of this sport. And this is why we're going to be breaking up the podcast into sports and politics, because I need to be able to dive a little bit deeper into some of these sports things. Give me an incentive to watch this because I want to at least be educated. I feel like a total moron for not even being able to say a player's name, but it's hard. It's hard for people who are really invested in college basketball, especially these days. Kudos to you, man. Kudos to you, because there's just no consistency. I know if you're following the world of recruiting and like AAU and high school basketball, maybe there's a little more fun in it, but you don't get engaged. The only person I know for sure in the league, besides Brandon Miller in Alabama, that's because of his own controversies, is Castleton, Nick Castleton. His name is Nick Castleton for the Gators, and it's sad to say because, man, if myself, what is it? It's 2023. If you were to tell myself in 2013 that you would know so little about college basketball currently, he'd probably be devastated a little bit. I'm now that I'm thinking about it, I'm disappointed in myself. Things I'm disappointed in also, it's politics. It's almost like a perennial thing. I'm disappointed in people who purport to be conservative pundits who are really just they're pandering to the people, man. They are lost in their own celebrity, and they're making a lot of money for lying. Just straight up lying. I mean, Tucker Carlson, he apparently got himself a hold of 44,000 brand new hours of security footage that Speaker McCarthy was given, that gave to him, which I hope they released to just the general public. I would be very curious. Now, 44,000 hours worth, there's probably a lot of nothing on there, but it would be interesting to see what's going on to get more than just Tucker Carlson and Fox News the availability to dissect and probably pitch just as much as he went on live TV and said that, oh, it's all, was construed to support a narrative. Well, he's also doing the exact same thing. He's not giving any context to what truly happened on that day. So just to give a little bit of an overview, Tucker Carlson, if you haven't seen it by now, went on his television program, which is watched by a lot more people than I thought. I know a few episodes ago, I pegged it at around the 1.5, I think even lower, like 1 million mark. And he gets about 5 million people a show, which to me is rather impressive. But when you're confirming people's biases, they may tend to watch you more so they can feel better about their own opinions. But he essentially went on air and, for lack of a better word, just purported complete bullshit to the people that watch his program. He basically fed them the red meat that they wanted, saying that, what happened on January 6th wasn't a riot. It was a peaceful protest, and that the QAnon shaman, who was basically a huge center point for the entire, whether it be the investigation that happened in the Capitol or for news media outlets around the world, just because look at the guy. He had, that old Viking helmet thing on. He had tattoos. He had sort of war paint on. He basically tried to say that because he was being escorted around by the police, which I guess you could say that the police were definitely following him and trying to open doors for him, which was kind of weird. I'm not going to be bashful about saying some of the footage he did show was a little odd, but we do have to remember there were roughly 40 to 50,000 people to the, maybe 10,000 people who were Capitol policemen. It's definitely not that number because the Capitol Police on that day were outnumbered 58-1. Okay, so that means for every 1,000 person or one person, there was 58 protesters, right? So that means if there were just 1,000 police officers, there were almost 60,000 protesters. So that's where we were at. So you're telling me that in a situation like that, and again, when you look at some of the most convincing footage that Tucker puts out there, you do see images of this guy with his bullhorn, basically essentially by himself with like 4 or 5 police officers around him, sort of just walking around looking for things. They're trying to open doors for him. It is kind of weird, right? I'm not trying to say some of their tactics weren't the best. But at the same token, what if they do just go whole hog and try to arrest him? Where are they going to take this guy? What happens when they finally get a person arrested and the whole crowd sees him? Some of those people in that crowd chanting to hang politicians. He then insinuated that Ashley Babbitt, the lady who died that day from a Capitol police officer, was murdered. Where, let's be honest, man, she's actively doing damage to the Capitol by trying to infiltrate a spot where literally congresswomen, men and women, are sitting to certify an election with hundreds, if not thousands of people at her back. What happens, okay, if they actually infiltrated that room that had congressmen and women in it? No one, Tucker included, no one, and I'm not going to sit here and say that January 6th was a coup attempt, okay? I'm not going to go that far. I don't think it was necessarily an insurrection. I think some of the people in that, and it's probably the worst actors within the crowd, did think it was a coup attempt, did think they were trying to pull off an insurrection. I do personally believe that Trump and his cronies probably at least, besides causing clear havoc, because otherwise you don't invite people to the Capitol on this day and claim election fraud and bring, for lack of a better word, a mob to do your bidding if you don't want to, at minimum, try and put pressure on the government officials that are doing the government's work that day, which January 6, 2021, they were certifying an election that everybody, including Tucker Carlson, there's legitimate texts in this, what is it, Dominion versus Fox News defamation case where Tucker Carlson himself is admitting that what he is spewing about, one, Donald Trump, he says he hates him and that the election was not stolen. He knows, and yet with all this stuff coming to light, he still has the balls to go out there and still lie to his people because he knows, sure as shit, that the people who are watching his program are not watching or listening or they have complete blinders to the fact that he is going around in private amongst his other Fox hosts, basically calling them idiots. And how people still want to take him seriously for that, kudos to him. I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, that now means CNN and MSNBC are, the purporters of truth. No, they have their own narrative too. And when it comes to certain things, I bet you when it comes, I don't know. When it comes to, the Trump collusion with Russia, I think they were probably all fully fastened in thinking that did happen, where for all intents and purposes, he tried, but there is no true proof that he actually did. The proof is actually on the other side, where it looked like Hillary was colluding with a true blue Russian agent, unbeknownst to her. Either way, we can get deep into the weeds on that. But January 6th, just to me, it always, one, I'm a Republican, right? I believe in the Constitution above almost anything. I believe in the liberties and rights of the people that are granted through those to me, sacred documents. And that building, that Capitol building, is essentially the symbolic capstone of what our government is all about. And for it to have been tarnished in such a manner by the party that purports to be for all of those institutions, to me, it's just sickening. It's sad. And again, it goes to show what populism can do when it runs amok. I think I think that populism is something where when it is constrained, it can have some good effects. I think populism can bring about progress that is productive, right? Let's call it productive populism. But it also, when you get a guy who comes in and I don't care what you say, man, just like FDR in a way, Trump is very, Huey Long for the left is probably the best version of this, but he just never attained the heights that Trump did. Trump is a demagogue, okay? And I'm not trying to say he's the most evil person in the world. Demagogues also can do good things. When it comes to his policy, for the most part, he was respectably solid. He's definitely made the party lurch more to the left, even though, and he has the balls and the stones to say that the true conservatives, like actual conservatives in the party are rhinos, and he purports to be the actual proper conservative, which we're in a topsy-turvy world these days, okay? Men can be women, cats can be dogs, 2 + 2 can equal 3, so the actual truth can just be obfuscated very, very easily. So that is what Tucker was doing here with these January 6th, his pieces. But what I would like to see is let's all just let these videos out, okay? Let's let the people themselves look at it, talk about it, discuss it. I think realistically, a lot of people's minds are set on what January 6th was or wasn't. I don't think there's a lot of hope of really turning up people's opinions one way or the other. You'd be hard-pressed to tell me that January 6th was a legitimate political act, wasn't a riot, and wasn't just as bad as anything we saw all over the summer with the Black Lives Matter protests. In my opinion, besides being a little less lethal from people who died, I think symbolically it is by far and away worse. There's nothing good about burning down cities. But when you are in a country that purports to be the bastion of freedom, the bastion of democracy around the world, and the party that purports to be and that, loves to say that they're the ones that really want to conserve these institutions, they're the ones actively on a day that the election is getting certified, tear them down, are trying to what seem to be tear them down. And I don't think many people in that crowd truly thought they were going to be overriding an election. But I think if you let a few of those people, there were definitely probably a couple hundred, maybe even in the thousands, who, if you let them into that House floor and they saw senators there, they saw congressmen and women there, House members, I shudder to think what could have happened. That's what people don't really like. People love to just whitewash that part where it's like they were feet away, 10, 15 feet away from prying open those doors. And then what kind of mayhem ensues with people who had zip ties? I do shudder to think of what would have happened because, we're just in such a partisan time that, like, I am a very conservative guy, okay? And I can see that is a problem, just like I can see that the, riots that were happening across the country due to BLM were a problem. I can see that the way that we reacted to COVID, whether it be conservative or Democrat, Fauci or, Larry Hogan, those types of crowds is a problem. Ron DeSantis, love him. He's my governor. He's had some things that I've had a problem with, okay? But I think overall he's been pretty solid. Trump, never voted for the guy, wouldn't vote for the guy. But there were things that were solid about him. We all need to just really take a look at what's going on and try. It can get emotional. Politics, obviously, is a very partisan game. Your emotions play into it very, very much. Mine do too from time to time. But I try and do my best to parse out all of the partisanship. Again, things I like to listen to. I listen to Ben Shapiro's podcast. He's much more right wing. And then I listen to Pod Save America, who's much more left wing. I obviously tend to agree with a lot more of what the Ben Shapiro type podcasts I listen to say versus the Pod Save Americas. However, there's a lot of narrative that they're trying to spin for you. So let's move on to one more thing here before we go. Joe Biden, he's trying to propose a $6.8 trillion dollar budget. Let's just look at the national debt clock, right? He said $6.8 trillion. Yes, that would be for a year. National debt clock. Let's just see what we have in tax revenue. Okay, so our current national debt obviously is $31 trillion. I can't show it because I haven't figured that out yet. That will be figured out, how to do these screen shares. Federal spending currently is about $6.2 billion when you round it up. Joe Biden wants to increase that by several hundreds of billions of dollars. When it comes to revenue, though, the revenue we get from taxes currently is about $4.6 trillion, just a little bit higher than that. So that means we're going to have shortfalls of almost $3 trillion. He says that over the course of a decade, it will decrease deficit. So that doesn't mean it's going to decrease the debt, okay? Because right now, when we're talking about deficits, let's look at what I'm looking at currently here, okay? $6.2 trillion in spending, $4.6 billion in money income coming in. So that means we have a deficit of roughly $2 trillion, right? Almost $3 trillion realistically. That's what he's talking about. So he's saying over the course of 10 years, that deficit, so it's going to be, 3 times 10, okay? So $30 trillion added on. Well, he's going to cut that deficit spending by 3, not touch the national debt. He's going to just touch the deficit. And these are things, and when you read it on like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, they're like, "Oh wow, that's unbelievable." No, it's not. It's crazy. And the way he's going to do that is by increasing taxes on essentially every American. He says it's going to be increase of a corporate tax, increase on the rich. Okay, we'll see. I mean, this budget's going nowhere. There's no way the House that's Republican-led is going to vote for that. Just no way. But we have to, especially with the debt ceiling looming, which we've already surpassed. It's now just, can we not default on our debt? That's going to be coming in, July, depending on how this tax season goes at best. Maybe August, maybe September. So we've all just got to, speaking of looking at things clearly and soberly and not so partisan, we all just have to realize, I think what my running theme for anybody who listens to this, especially once we break it out into politics, markets, and news, if you're a millennial or you are a Zoomer, and obviously the generations that are coming underneath, you're going to be paying income taxes. You're going to be paying your, what do they call it? Your Medicaid, Medicare, your payroll taxes. You're going to be paying that, but you will not be getting Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. You're just not. And if you do, it's probably going to be because you're very, very poor. So I just want to get that across people's heads to start thinking about that and do plan accordingly. And to be honest, if you were to tell me, okay, Chase, your generation and the generation below you, Gen Z, the Zoomers, whatever they call these cats, you guys aren't going to get Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Let's just say Social Security to keep it easy. But that's going to basically stop the national debt from increasing. We're going to be able to put these programs back to solvency and hopefully pay back down the national debt at least a little bit. I'm not a big guy. Listen, do I want us to be at zero national debt? Yes. I think that's by far and away, just like your household should be at zero national debt and hopefully have savings. That's where I think the United States government should be, because that way when you're in a pinch, you're in downturns, you can juice things up. You have a backstop. It also, as Americans, makes our currency worth that much more. Putting yourself into debt spending like this is not great, and especially as the interest rates that we are needing to boost up right now to bring down inflation. Well, that's making our debt payments on this on the interest for this debt higher. So we're now increasing the debt even faster. So it's like a credit card payment, just only paying the minimum. Well, you're still going to be racking up more and more debt. Irregardless, okay, so he's proposed that plan. He wants to increase military spending a little bit. He wants to obviously increase the benefits of Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. This thing's dead on arrival. It just is, because Republicans aren't going to go for it. And I really hope that one day, when Republicans are in power, they actually practice what they preach, because our previous president, really the previous two Republican presidents, didn't do that at all. Bush, realistically, essentially I think maybe Eisenhower reduced the the deficits from World War II a little bit, but every other Republican president who preaches fiscal responsibility never did it, whether it be Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Bush, or Trump. I hope, and just God willing, that one day a president has the cojones to actually do the hard job that needs to be done and get the finances not under control necessarily, because I don't think that can happen under the span of one presidency, unless we're just going to completely stop all federal spending. But at least course correct with the help of Congress, course correct the problem, and have a plan of action of how we go forward. The problem is it's hard to have a plan of action when we've basically let ourselves go this badly from a fiscal and monetary standpoint. I can empathize from a weight standpoint. It's hard to start reeling it back in once you've just let yourself go a little bit. And now you got to realize, hey, if I keep letting myself go, there is danger on the precipice. That's sort of where we're at here from a monetary standpoint when it comes to the United States. And we have presidents such as Joe Biden. I would only imagine whoever the next president is, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, they're going to propose budgets that are similar. We have issues in our scopes, right? We talk about China on here. We're talking about Ukraine on here. So we have geopolitical issues that need to be dealt with, and that requires money. But we have no money, okay? And when you get things such as COVID that come out of the blue, you then we find out we doubled our national debt over COVID, okay? Essentially doubled it. And so you quickly find out what happens. Oh, when there's true blue problems that you're not expecting, no one was expecting COVID, this is what can happen to you. You can really get just shoved right up the ace, okay? And so that said, this is going to cap it for the show tonight. I'm sorry it was a little sloppy. That is not the intent. The quality is hopefully only going to go up from the actual content, okay? The nuts, the soup, and the nuts, okay, of the show. I'm hoping that the audio is a little bit better tonight. It's not clipping as much. I did love that silky smooth 4K goodness that we were able to get out of, I guess technically yesterday's show. It was Wednesday, dropped late Wednesday, really only got a chance to air today. But we're going to see. We're going to keep playing around with the settings here, pressing buttons and poking around, seeing what we can do. But for those of you that have viewed it, please like, subscribe. We'd love to get any input you want to have. And we're hoping to see you again here on Tuesday, maybe even Monday, depending on how ambitious I become with the new scheduling. Never know. Don't count on it, though. But we'll definitely see you here Wednesday and Friday. No doubt about that. Hopefully, we will have the formatting done by then, and we will be giving you little tidbits on sports, tidbits on politics. With that said, though, adios. We are out.